What is this with red butt flies in Canada, you know?
Well, it's not a joke. It's actually, there's a lot of Chronomid pupa when they're just finished transformation from the larva to the pupa stage. They'll often have a little tag of hemoglobin that didn't quite finish the transformation. So you see a lot of Chronomid pupa with a little tag in of blood red in color. So the red butt, red brown Chronomid pupa is a good imitation of that particular Chronomid stage of the pupa stage.
What's this thing again? The red green, the red brown, the red green show? Is that what?
Yeah, but we're politically correct on this show.
Oh, okay. I just wanted. So okay, so this is obviously a very popular Chronomid.
It's a very popular color combination. That red brown abdominal color plus the red copper wire rib is a deadly combination.
There's no question. Red copper wire, my favorite. I get all the uni wire from Canada.
There you go.
Well, let's take a look at this pattern.
There's literally hundreds of different species of chironomids or midges that trout feed on. I get often asked, well, what's your favorite color of chironomid if you're only to tie one? And that's a hard question to answer because they come in so many different sizes and colors, and again, trout are not colorblind. But if I had to pick only one color to tie a chironomid or midge pupa out of, it would be a dark reddish brown in coloration, or maybe if you just give me black, and then with a red wire rib. So I'm going to tie one of my favorite still water chironomid or midge pupa patterns. And it's going to use the dark red brown still water solutions midge flex. So this fly is called the red butt, red brown chironomid pupa. I'm going to tie this fly using a curved caddis/shrimp pupa hook, the wide gap. It can be tied as small as 16 and as large as number 8 because they can get that large. I'm just going to use a number 10 now to give you a representative idea of this pattern. So we're going to take 8/0 maroon tying thread and to form a base. The body, or pardon me, the rib of this fly is bright red copper wire. Now, copper wire comes in a whole bunch of different colors, like regular copper, light copper, green, brown. You want to get the reddest color possible, and several companies make that wire in the real bright red color. I'm just going to tie it in along the back of the hook, just to help build the body up a bit. And then the rib, or pardon me, the body of the fly is going to be our midge flex. I'm just going to use my scissors and taper a point on it just to make it easier to tie in. And again, we're going to take that up towards the eye of the hook, stretch it, pull it out to the bend of the hook. And now we're ready to build the body. So the stretch, the midge stretch flex, you can really pull it out. So this material is really good to work with because it's easy to work with. You can build that nice tapered body depending on how much pressure you apply. But more importantly, you get a nice sheen to the fly. And you want that sheen because the naturals, as they're moving or elevating up through the water column, are trapping that gas to give it that shiny appearance. And so this is what we're trying to imitate. So again, when we tie this material off and it's under pressure, make sure you counter wrap it both sides so that when you cut it off, it doesn't all unravel. We're going to take our wire rib now, and I'm going to tie in 3, 4 turns for a bit of a tag. And the reason why I'm doing that is that many chironomid species, when they change from the larval to the pupal stage, there'll often be a little tag of a maroony red hemoglobin at the very end of their abdomen. And that's what I'm imitating with that little tag of red copper wire. So I'm going to get 5 to 7 ribs of the wire. Tie the fly off, tie the rib off, and then I'm going to be using a dark olive dyed center tail of a ringneck pheasant. That's going to be the shell back for this fly. So I'm just going to cut about a 1/8 of an inch wide strip of feathers, and this is the tips. I'm just going to cut back the tips like so, and then I'm going to tie it in so that the butts are pointing forward. So I'm kind of tying this shell back in reverse order, and it'll be clearer as I tie the fly. So now there's the future shell back tied on, and when the fly is completed, I'll be folding it back that way rather than the normal way forward, and there's a reason for that, which I'll explain. So I'm just cutting that excess off. Chronomids have gills. The Chronomid pupa have gills, and I'm going to use some white midge gill material or antron to imitate that. This is, I'm just pulling out one little strand of this white gill material, and I'm going to lash it in. Just going to pick it apart a little bit more. So I'm going to take our white gill material, tie it in. I'm going to lash it in so that the gills are going to be out, protruding out both sides of the fly when I'm finished. Then I'm just going to take a strand of peacock herl. It's going to form the thorax. And tie that in there like so. And then I'm going to use the peacock herl to build up a bit of a hump to imitate the thorax. So tie it off, tying thread. And I'm just going to take the tying thread now and just sneak 3 rib winds through that peacock herl to toughen it up a bit. And then I'm going to take the pheasant tail, pull it back over, and tie off the fly. Cut off the excess pheasant tail and form a nice back there. I can use my whip finisher now. Finish the fly off. So the reason why I wanted to tie that shell back in backwards is I wanted a clean head around the eye. So the eye of the fly is nice and clean, and the gills don't get obstructed by tying thread. So now I'm just going to trim the gills a bit. So a bit more. So now the gills are fairly prominent out both sides. Just trim them up a bit more. And there we have our completed Chronomid pupa pattern. We'll just take a close look at that. So the good color combination, red-brown body, and then that red copper wire rib is a very common color you'll see in many productive still waters. The easiest way to learn how to fish Chronomids or midge pupa is with a floating line, a strike indicator, and suspending our flies at various depths within the water column. You have to remember that Chronomids, when they emerge from the old larval shuck, they rise vertically up through the water column. The best and most efficient way to fish them first is to place your Chronomid pupa patterns within about 1 foot of the lake bottom. So we need to know the depth of water we're fishing, and that's where a fish finder or a depth sounder is an important fishing tool. If we know the depth we're fishing, we can suspend, using that strike indicator, the Chronomid pupil patterns exactly 12 inches off the bottom or 15 inches off the bottom. We want to start at the bottom first. If we're not getting any fish or any strikes, then we work higher in the water column. We can fish with the strike indicator just sitting out in the water and letting the wave action move that bobber up and down. Remember, we've tied those Chronomid pupil patterns on with a loop knot, preferably a non-slip loop knot, which allows a lot more action to the fly. Or we can also cast out, wait for the fly to sink vertically till it's in about a foot of the bottom, and then we can start a very, very slow hand twist or strip retrieve, moving the fly ever so slowly. The whole idea of using the strike indicator with Chronomids is keeping that pupil pattern in a very precise depth zone where we hope the fish are feeding. And by starting as close to the bottom as possible, we know that's the best place to start because it's a lot safer for the fish to eat the Chronomid pupa closer to the bottom than higher in the water column and closer to the surface where they're more exposed to predators such as ospreys and loons. The most important factors to consider when you're fishing Chronomid pupil patterns is that the fish can be very particular as to what depth they're comfortable feeding at. So for instance, if it was 15 feet deep, those fish might only want to eat the pupa between 14 feet and 13 and a half feet, or between 14 feet and 13 feet. And if you're below it or above it, you may not get near the action that someone else sitting right next to you or even in the same boat is fishing. They're just in the zone and you're not. When we do the slow hand twist retrieves, it just provides a little more action to the flies while still maintaining the fly in the depth zone that you want to keep that fly in. There's a fish. Oh yeah, yeah, beautiful.